There is a place in the soul that does not speak in language, but in silence. In aching symbols and mythic gestures that rise from the deep like fog over a forgotten moor. Perhaps you have felt it, that subtle throb beneath the breastbone when you are alone, or the way your body leans toward the sorrow of others, as if some invisible tether draws you into their pain like the moon pulls tides. You, the one who feels too much, who knows before words are spoken, who absorbs the ache in a room like a sponge drinks spilled wine. You may call yourself an empath, and that is no mistake. But deeper still, beneath the name and the gift, there is a labyrinth, and within it, a mirror, and within that, the face of your own unloved parts. Before we begin, take a moment to like and subscribe. The more you engage and stay with the content, the more YouTube shares these timeless insights with others. By doing so, you're not only helping this channel grow, but also spreading Carl Jung's transformative wisdom to those seeking meaning and inner truth. Let's dive into the depth of the psyche together. You who love the broken, have you ever wondered why? Why your heart aches most for the ones who cannot hold it? Why your body recognizes the wounded before they speak? Why you keep offering light to those whose hands are shaped only to take it is noble. Yes, to love the aching. It is sacred, even. But sacredness without awareness becomes sacrifice, and sacrifice without consciousness becomes shadow in disguise. You believe you are helping, you believe you are healing, and perhaps, for moments, you are. But the greater question is, who is healing whom? Because what you call love may, in truth, be a reenactment of an old wound wearing a new mask. You meet the shattered again and again, not by accident, but by unconscious design. For there is a part of you that still resides in the realm of the unhealed, calling out in the language of resonance, not logic. When we love what breaks us, it is often because we have not yet learned how to love the broken within. And so the soul, in its mythic wisdom, conjures the other not as a mistake, but as a message. The narcissist, the addict, the unavailable one, these are not curses. They are characters in your inner theater, each bearing a scroll etched with the lines of your own forgotten script. And here, the empath becomes not just a healer, but a vessel of projection. You give and give, until the self begins to fray at the edges. Your kindness, unguarded, becomes a doorway through which others enter, not to love, but to consume. And still you call it love, because anything else would tear the fabric of your identity. After all, if you are not the fixer, the feeler, the healer, then who are you? But there is danger in denying the warrior, the wild one, the wrathful god within. There is peril in exiling your hunger, your boundaries, your no. The more you disown these parts, the more the world brings them back to you in the form of another. You call them toxic, but they are mirrors. You say they drain you, and they do, but only because you have not yet given yourself permission to stop bleeding for those who will not even offer a bandage. There is an archetype here. Buried in the marrow, the wounded healer, walking the earth with a lantern lit not only for others, but also for their own lost child. They seek redemption through others, unconsciously hoping that by healing someone else's pain, their own will finally settle. But pain cannot be outsourced. The soul does not subcontract transformation. You must walk into your own cave. You must sit with your own ghosts. I remember a man in deep analysis, his life a constellation of women who needed saving, each lover a siren of sorrow. He believed it was his role to rescue them, but in truth, he was seeking his mother's eyes, looking for the tenderness that had never held him. He did not want a lover. He wanted to be chosen, and no matter how many he saved, it was never enough, because the child within was still knocking, unheard, unseen, unfed. And when he finally turned inward, when he allowed the collapse of the persona, that polished mask of I am needed, therefore I matter, he met something truer, something terrifying, something liberating. He met the part of himself he had never dared to grieve, the one who was not saved. And in grieving, he was reborn not as a rescuer, but as a man whole unto himself. This is the paradox of the empathic path, that your gift, when unconscious, can become your cage, that your light, when not anchored in shadow, can blind you to your own needs. You were not born to be a vessel for others' sorrow alone. You were born with a soul made of multitudes' rage and grace, stillness and storm. It is not your task to fix everyone. It is your task to understand why you believe you must. The need to rescue often arises not from love, but from unresolved fear that if you are not needed, you are not worthy. But that is a lie spoken by the wounded self, the self who once had to earn affection by abandoning their own needs, the self who still believes that being chosen means disappearing. You do not need to disappear to be loved. You do not need to fracture to feel connection. Real love does not require you to bleed. Real intimacy does not demand your exhaustion. And until you realize this, the pattern will repeat. The unconscious does not tire. It will summon the same lesson in new clothes, across decades, across lifetimes, until you finally stand before the mirror and say, enough. Enough of saving others to avoid yourself. Enough of calling codependency compassion. Enough of mistaking your projection for destiny. You are not here to replay your childhood in someone else's arms. You are here to reclaim the parts of yourself that you once gave away to survive. And, oh, when you begin to gather those exiled parts, the fierce one, the selfish one, the lustful one, the unyielding one, you will feel a tremor in your chest, as if something ancient is waking. That is your sovereignty. That is your soul uncoiling. The true empath is not one who absorbs, but one who discerns. Not one who bends until broken, but one who holds their shape, their fire. There is a difference between feeling with and fusing with, between holding space and losing the self in the void of another. Boundaries are not barriers. They are altars upon which true connection is built. So ask yourself, not why do they hurt me, but why do I return to the hurt? What part of me is still calling this lesson back? What is the shadow that I have not yet kissed? Because when you stop asking how to change them and begin asking what they reflect in you, the door opens. The labyrinth reveals not a monster, but a wounded child, and that child is not weak. That child is your key. You are not here to dissolve in the ache of others. You are here to reclaim the aching brilliance within, the wholeness that was never lost, only forgotten, the light that does not rescue, but radiates, the self that does not abandon, but returns again and again to the temple of truth, to the sanctuary of your own soul. And so, dear traveler of shadow and light, if this journey spoke to you, if these words stirred something deep and wild in your marrow, leave a number below that reflects your own myth in motion. Leave. 7. If you are walking through the labyrinth of pattern, tracing your steps through old wounds, now seen anew. Leave. 9. If you are dancing with the archetype of the wounded healer, finally turning that medicine inward. Leave. 13. If you are undergoing ego death, shedding the savior to make room for the sovereign, or leave your own sacred number, one that pulses with the truth of where you are in the spiral. Let it be a prayer. Let it be a sigil. Let it be a marker on your soul's map. And may those who read it feel less alone in their becoming, that what you seek is not out there, it is within. The empath who integrates their shadow becomes sovereign, no longer bound by the compulsion to fix, no longer addicted to pain dressed as love, no longer hypnotized by the brokenness of others, They still feel deeply, but they no longer abandon themselves in the name of empathy. They become discerning, compassionate, but boundaried, open, but rooted, loving, but free. And from this place, they attract differently. Not the broken seeking to be saved, but the whole seeking to grow. Not the hungry ghost, but the embodied soul. Not the projection, but the partner. This is possible, but it requires a descent into your own shadow. Are you willing? The descent I speak of is not metaphor. It is not poetry. It is experience. It is the moment you stop reaching for others and instead turn toward the parts of yourself you have exiled. It is not pleasant. The shadow never is. It stinks of neglect. It speaks in curses. It shows you your envy. You need to control your desire to punish, your hunger to be seen at all costs. You say, "This is not me," but it is the part of you that your goodness has denied. When an empath begins the work of reclaiming shadow, they will first meet resistance. The mind will say, "But I am the loving one, the peaceful one, the safe one." And that is where the trouble began. You believe that only the light in you was worthy of expression, but the psyche is not interested in half of you. The psyche wants all of you, the sacred and the profane, the healer and the one who longs to be held, the giver and the one who wants to scream. What you suppress, you become. What you ignore, you attract. What you judge, you marry in secret. The broken souls that come to you again and again carry pieces of your own lost self. The addict is your own disowned hunger. The manipulator is your own denied need for control. The avoidant partner is your own dissociated rage. You do not attract them because you deserve suffering. You attract them because your soul is aching for wholeness, and until you bring these fragments back into the circle of your being, they will continue to knock on your door, bearing new names. There is no evil in this. Only invitation. Invitation to wholeness. I will tell you something I once saw in a dream. I stood on the edge of a great chasm. Across from me, another version of myself. Darker, older, cloaked in shadow, stood silently between us. A bridge of bone. I knew that if I crossed, I could never go back. I stepped forward. Ach, Bone Eckert. When I reached the other side, the shadow, me, smiled, and I realized we were never separate, only estranged. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is your twin, and until you make peace with it, you will keep seeking it in others. This is the fate of the unaware empath. They become hostages to their own projections. They think they are helping, but they are reenacting. They think they are loving, but they are reliving. They confuse compassion with compulsion, empathy with enmeshment, love with self-erasure. But when you begin to retrieve your shadow, everything changes. You stop needing to be needed. You stop falling in love with pain. You stop rescuing those who have no intention of healing. And instead, you begin to choose. You begin to ask, does this relationship honor me? Does this soul see me? Or only my light? Am I safe here, or merely useful? These questions are terrifying for the empath, because for so long, your worth has been bound to your usefulness. To stop giving, to stop bleeding for others feels like betrayal. But it is not. It is rebirth. And it is from this rebirth that you begin to encounter what I call archetypal intimacy. Archetypal intimacy is not born of trauma, bonds, or projection. It is not the empath savior rescuing the broken child in a lover's body. It is the meeting of two souls who have looked into their own abyss and returned bearing gifts. It is the dance of the sufferance, not perfect, but conscious. And it is only available to the empath who has done the inner descent, who has faced the compulsion to fix and refused it, who has sat with their own brokenness and loved it back to life. So how do you begin? Not by cutting yourself off from emotion, not by building walls, but by building roots. You feel deeply, yes, but now you must feel wisely. You love completely, yes, but now you must love discerningly. You see the soul in others, yes, but now you must ask, do they see mine? The empath who reclaims their shadow becomes not less sensitive, but more sovereign. Their sensitivity no longer leaks, it radiates. It no longer absorbs poison, it alchemizes it. They become the embodiment of the archetypal healer, not because they rescue others, but because their presence reminds others of their own capacity to heal. You are not here to carry everyone. You are here to carry yourself fully, truly, until your presence becomes a mirror where others see what is possible, not through your sacrifice, but through your integrity. And yes, some will leave. Those who needed you broken will vanish when you are whole. Those who loved your giving, but not your boundaries, will retreat. Let them. The more you honor your wholeness, the more life will respond in kind. You will meet others who do not fear your strength. You will love without disappearing. You will serve without losing yourself. You will give from overflow, not from emptiness. And you will see, finally, that the pattern is broken because you are no longer broken. You have become the one you needed. And now you attract, not from wound, but from truth, not from shadow, but from soul. The soul, once it begins to remember itself, cannot return to sleep. And this remembering for the empath is not merely an awakening. It is a reckoning. Because to truly awaken is not to float above suffering, but to meet it precisely where it lives, in the marrow of your inherited stories, in the silence you kept as a child, in the ache behind your smile. When you stop chasing healing for others, when you begin to ask why you are so obsessed with fixing them, the answer that arises is uncomfortable and sacred. You are not rescuing them. You are trying to rescue the part of yourself they resembled. The empath's heart, when unconscious, becomes a graveyard of projections, not out of malice, but out of longing. The longing to be mirrored, the longing to be chosen, the longing to be held with the same depths that you hold others. And when that longing is unacknowledged, it becomes a magnet, not for love, but for replication. And so you attract the ones who hurt like you do, hoping that if you can save them, some ancient part of you will be redeemed in the process. But no one can carry your childhood. No one can bleed out your ancestral silence. No one can mother the part of you that your own mother could not touch. Only you. And so we descend again, this time deeper, not into their pain, but into yours. The pain you mask behind constant giving, the exhaustion you confuse with duty, the loneliness you dress up as independence. What if you were not born to hold everyone else? What if your empathy is not a job, but a compass? What if it was never about saving the broken, but about noticing how deeply you'd abandoned the broken within you? You see, the unconscious speaks in patterns. It repeats, not to punish, but to reveal. And every relationship that drained you, every broken soul that drained your life force was echoing a lesson you were not yet ready to learn. That love is not the absence of boundaries. That compassion without self-awareness becomes martyrdom. That your wound is not your wisdom until you've walked through it without looking away. I met many empaths in my lifetime who lived in cycles of heartbreak, always loving, always giving, always ending up empty. And I told them, not with cruelty, but with care. You are not unlucky. You are unconscious. Your pattern is your unconscious screaming. Your exhaustion is your soul's protest. Your heartbreak is not noble. It is evidence that you've abandoned your own center. But when you finally see this, when you feel the rage beneath your tenderness, when you feel the ache beneath your healing, when you admit you want to be loved as much as you love, then the door opens. Then the projection dissolves. Then you begin to see not who you want people to be, but who they truly are. And that clarity, it changes everything. The broken soul who once intoxicated you now repels you. The dynamic that once felt romantic now feels toxic. The pattern that once seduced you now becomes transparent. You are no longer drawn in by suffering. You are moved by truth because you have seen your own shadow, and it no longer controls you. You have integrated the archetypes that once ruled you unconsciously. The savior who needed the helpless to feel holy. The martyr who confused pain with purpose. The orphan who called every wound a home. These are no longer your rulers. They are your guests, honored. Sing, but not in control. And in this space, this sacred clearing where shadow and self sit side by side, you begin to choose again. This time from clarity. This time from sovereignty. This time from the part of you that no longer needs to be needed in order to exist. And what comes to you now will be different. It might be clearer. It may feel unfamiliar, even boring at first because drama was once your compass. But it will be true. It will meet you in the place you fought to reclaim, and it will not ask you to shrink or serve or sacrifice your soul for belonging. It will ask only this. Will you stay true to yourself, even when no one needs saving? Will you allow love in, even when it does not wound? Will you belong to your own being, even when the world still calls your depth too much? This is the great turning when the empath ceases to bleed for the broken and begins to burn for the true. When the soul no longer confuses compassion with codependency. When the unconscious no longer selects pain as the only doorway to intimacy. And yes, the path here is lonely at first. The silence after you've stopped rescuing can feel deafening. You will wonder, where is everyone now that I have nothing to give them but my presence? But do not mistake the quiet for abandonment. It is gestation. You are no longer performing your worth. You are letting it breathe. Let it breathe. Let yourself breathe. Let the light and the shadow hold hands inside your chest. You are no longer broken. You are no longer a magnet for pain. You are a mirror for the sacred. And the broken souls you once attracted will still come. But now they will feel something different in your presence, not the soft space to collapse, but the fierce invitation to rise. Some will leave, some will transform, but you will remain whole. You are whole now. Not because you have never broken, but because you have gathered every broken piece and dared to name it sacred. Not because you no longer feel others' pain, but because you have learned to feel your own thirst, and not because your shadow has vanished, but because it now walks beside you. No longer an enemy, but an elder, the empath, once lost in the tides of others, now becomes an island of stillness. Not to isolate, but to ground. No longer absorbing every emotion in the room, but witnessing them. No longer offering your soul in exchange for love, but bringing your soul with you into love. You have crossed a threshold. The rescuer has become the rememberer. The fixer has become the knower. The open wound has become the open eye. And from here, you begin to see what you could not see before. That love was never meant to hurt this much. That compassion does not require collapse. That empathy is a gift, but only when rooted in self-respect. You see now that it was not your destiny to carry broken souls across their oceans, but to light beacons on your shore so that they might find their own way. If they choose, You are no longer the boat. You are the lighthouse. This is what the integrated empath becomes. A beacon, a source, not a savior, not a sponge, a presence. Others feel your light, but they cannot take it unless they too are willing to awaken. This is the boundary of sacred resonance. You are no longer the rescuer. You are the reminder. And in this, you will meet those you could never meet before. Souls who are not attracted to your bleeding, but to your clarity. Souls who do not mistake your depth for weakness, but recognize it as royalty. Souls who come not to be saved, but to walk beside you, whole unto themselves. You see, when your unconscious no longer seeks healing through others, it creates space for the soul to enter, and the soul, once invited, brings not only peace, but purpose. A purpose that is no longer about others, but about your own becoming. The empath, once addicted to pain, now becomes devoted to truth. And this truth is not loud, it is not popular, but it is unshakable because it is born of integration, not performance. I tell you now, as one who has walked with shadows and danced with symbols, your life is a myth. Every relationship was a message. Every heartbreak a rite of passage. Every why me was the soul whispering, this is how you will return to yourself. The broken souls were never punishment. They were mirrors. And now that you have seen what they were reflecting, you no longer need to repeat the pattern. The spiral has turned. The wound has spoken. The light has entered. But this is not the end. This is individuation. The sacred unfolding of the true self, not the persona, not the projection, but the eternal flame that has always waited beneath your name. And the empath, once fragmented by the world's demands, now becomes whole by the soul's decree. Individuation does not mean isolation. It means union of all parts, light and shadow, past and present, self and self. It means you are no longer looking for someone to complete you. You are looking for someone who can witness your completion. And when you leave from this place, you will find that the world begins to respond differently. Not because it has changed, but because you have. The outer reflects the inner. The archetypal wheel turns not outside of you, but through you. And now that you are no longer spinning in unconscious longing, you are free to walk with intention, with knowing, with sovereignty. Yes, there will still be pain. Yes, there will still be broken souls who try to enter, but you will see them now, not as saviors see, but as seers do. You will meet them with presence, not with absorption. You will offer love, but not your life. You will listen, but you will not lose yourself. And this is the gift of the empaths who has integrated the shadow. The ability to love without leaving oneself, to serve without becoming enslaved, to feel deeply without falling apart, to give fully without going empty. You were never meant to drown in their wounds. You were meant to remember yours, to touch them, to tend to them, to love them as sacred instructions, and then to rise. And now you have. And now the broken souls will knock, but they will not stay. They will feel your light and recognize their own possibility. Some will rise, some will run, but you will remain rooted because you are no longer looking for home in another. You have returned to the only home that ever existed, yourself. And from here, everything begins again, not in suffering, but in sacred clarity. This is your shadow revelation, and now you are free.